It started on a Tuesday, the kind of day where the only thing I planned to arrest was a nap. But instead, I found myself facing Karen. Not just any Karen, the Karen of the Lakewood Estates Homeowners Association. She marched into the station like she owned it. Acrylic nails clicking, blonde bob bouncing, and sunglasses perched on her head like she just walked off the set of a reality show called Suburban Scandals. "Chief Barnes," she huffed, nose upturned like my office smelled like poor people. "We need to talk. It's urgent." Now, as chief of police in a town of 6,000, I've learned that urgent usually means someone's mailbox got dented or a raccoon looked at someone funny. So, I folded my hands and said, "Go ahead." "It's about your lake cabin," she said, settling into the chair across from me like it was a throne. My eyebrows raised. "My cabin?" "Yes. My son Tyler. You've met him. He's graduating this weekend. Is planning his party. He needs a suitable venue. Yours is ideal. Lakeside view, fire pit, private dock. Perfect for his guest list." "Karen," I said slowly. "That's not a venue. That's my private property." She smiled like I just told her she won a free Botox session. "Well, you barely use it. And as HOA president, I must say it is a shame to let such a beautiful cabin sit empty. Plus, we've already started the group chat. I've ordered monogrammed floaties." "Monogrammed floaties?" She waved a manicured hand. "KTP. Karen's Tyler Party. It's a thing." I blinked. "You want me to hand over my cabin for your son's graduation rager because you made floaties?" Karen didn't blink. "Exactly. As a public servant, shouldn't you support the community?" I stood slowly, hoping the motion would signal the conversation was over. "Let me be clear. That cabin is mine. It's not for rent. It's not for parties. And it's certainly not available for KTP or whatever acronym you dreamed up in your yoga class." Karen stood too, eyes narrowing. "You'll regret this. My son has influence. He's dating the mayor's niece." I smiled. "And I'm dating common sense. We'll get along just fine." She stormed out, muttering something about small men with badges. I sat back in my chair, shook my head, and sighed. Something told me this wasn't the end of it. Not with Karen, not with Tyler, and certainly not with those damn floaties. By Friday morning, the entire town seemed to know about the floaties. I walked into Benny's diner to grab coffee, and 3 separate people asked, "You really said no to Tyler's party?" Like I had declined a national holiday. Apparently, Karen had kicked off a campaign to paint me as the Grinch who stole graduation. Even Miss Patty, who's usually too busy gossiping about which neighbor's dog is pregnant, gave me side-eye when I walked in. "Morning, Chief," she said, pouring my usual. "Shame about the lake cabin. Could have been a real nice party for the kids." "Miss Patty," I said slowly. "When your roof leaked last month, who climbed up there in the middle of the storm to tarp it?" She softened. "You did. And who pulled Karen's poodle out of the storm drain last October?" "You. And that dog still hates you." "Exactly. I'm not the villain here." "Maybe not," she muttered. "But Karen's got a louder voice." That was the problem. Karen didn't whisper, she broadcasted. By noon, my phone had blown up with calls from neighbors, board members, even the mayor himself, who sounded more amused than concerned. "Listen, Jack," Mayor Foster chuckled. "Maybe just let the kid use the dock for a few hours. You don't want the whole town turning on you. I'm not letting some entitled teenager throw a rager at my personal cabin just because his mom thinks she runs the neighborhood." The mayor sighed. "Well, you do outrank her. That's putting it mildly." I hung up and drove out to the cabin to check if Karen had tried anything sneaky. Wouldn't be the first time she bypassed rules and blamed it on miscommunication. As I pulled up, I saw it, a pile of party supplies, coolers, lawn chairs, a Bluetooth speaker the size of a refrigerator, and yes, the infamous floaties, all sitting neatly on my porch. She was staking her claim. I opened the door and checked the cabin. Empty for now, but I could feel it. Tyler and his band of influencers were planning a coup, and Karen, she was pulling strings like a puppet master high on HOA power. I gathered the floaties, stuffed them into the bed of my truck, and drove straight to her house. Karen answered in a silk robe like she'd been expecting paparazzi. "You left some things at my place," I said, dumping the pile onto her lawn. "That's not yours to decide." "Oh, but it is. See, Karen, I wear a badge. I enforce the law. And if your son or his friends trespass on my property this weekend," I leaned in, "I won't just be canceling a party. I'll be making arrests." Karen's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." She didn't slam the door this time. She just stared, calculating. I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. By Saturday afternoon, the air in Lakewood felt charged. Not with celebration, but with anticipation. Graduation day. Teens were everywhere in caps, gowns, and parental eye rolls. Social media buzzed with hashtags like #KTP2025 and #RageOnTheLake. I was patrolling when Deputy Simmons called over the radio. "Chief, you might want to check the cabin." I gritted my teeth. On my way. By the time I reached the dirt road that curved around the lake, I could already hear bass thumping, muffled by trees, but unmistakable. Music. Loud, entitled, and very illegal. I parked the cruiser and walked the rest of the way in silence. No sirens, no warning. If they thought they could outmaneuver me, they clearly forgot one key fact: I was a teenager once, too. As I rounded the bend, the scene came into view. Tyler was there, shirtless, gold sunglasses, surrounded by friends recording TikToks like it was Coachella. A keg sat proudly in the back of someone's truck. A homemade banner reading, "Tyler's House Now," was duct-taped across the front porch. That's when I saw Karen. She wasn't just in attendance. She was hosting, carrying a tray of cupcakes like some twisted Martha Stewart. She saw me and froze mid-step, her lips curling into a smile that said, "Surprised?" I wasn't. Not really. I stepped onto the porch and raised my voice. "Everyone not related to me has 60 seconds to leave this property." Laughter. Then Tyler swaggered forward. "You can't kick us out. My mom said it's fine. And last I checked, you don't own Lakewood." I stepped closer. "Tyler, I'm going to give you a choice. Walk away now and spend graduation night eating sheet cake with your friends, or stay and spend it in a holding cell with your mom." Karen stepped in. "This is harassment. You're just jealous. My son is popular." "Karen, your son is one solo cup away from a citation." Suddenly, phones were out, recording, documenting, hoping for drama. I stayed calm. That's what made me dangerous. I pulled out my own phone and hit a button on an app. "Deputy Simmons is on his way. And FYI, I installed cameras last week. Want to guess what the footage shows?" Karen paled. "You broke in," I continued, "which means trespassing, destruction of property, and underage drinking." Tyler's sunglasses slipped down his nose. "We were just, setting up. While playing music, pouring beer, and literally calling it Tyler's house." The crowd started to thin. The smart ones ran. The rest scattered politely. Within minutes, the party was over. Just like that, Karen stood frozen. "You'll regret this," she hissed again. I smiled. "Maybe, but not today." The fallout began before I even finished breakfast. My phone buzzed non-stop. Texts from townsfolk, council members, even local parents thanking me for keeping the kids in line. One even offered me a pie. It was pecan, so I considered that a promotion. But Karen wasn't finished. At 9 a.m. sharp, she marched into town hall during an open council session like a suburban general with a grievance manifesto. Her signature bob was freshly curled. Her nails were blood red, and in her arms, one of the infamous KTP floaties, now deflated, like her plan. This, she declared, holding it high like evidence at a trial, represents the hostile abuse of power inflicted by our chief of police. The room went silent. Councilman Dean blinked. That's a pool float. It's a symbol, Dean. My son was publicly humiliated. His party cancelled. His friends scattered like criminals. Karen, I said, rising from the back of the room. They scattered because they were trespassing. And your son was illegally serving alcohol. He's a child. He's 18 and handed me a Party King wristband while holding a keg tap. A chuckle rippled through the room. Karen's eyes narrowed like twin lasers. You've embarrassed my family, Jack. This is personal now. I'm calling for a vote to remove you as HOA security liaison. I raised an eyebrow. Karen, that title doesn't come with any authority or a paycheck. You just like having me on speed dial. Well, then I'm calling for a full re-election of the board. Karen, Councilman Dean said, you're on the board. You'd be re-electing yourself. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked around, expecting support. Instead, she saw smirks. Fine, she snapped. But I'm not done. I'm taking this to the neighborhood Facebook page. Gasps. That was Karen's battleground, her kingdom. Her war zone of emojis and exaggerated punctuation. I knew what was coming, a 2,000-word manifesto in all caps titled Corruption in Lakewood. My son deserved that doc. She stormed out, floaty under her arm, robes swishing like a cartoon villainess. I didn't chase her. I'd done my job. A few weeks later, Tyler posted an apology video on TikTok after the mayor's niece dumped him and someone leaked a video of him falling off the dock trying to twerk on a paddleboard. Karen never spoke to me again in person, but every Christmas, without fail, I get a card addressed to Officer Party Pooper with no return address. Inside, a tiny inflatable floaty. I keep them all in my desk drawer. Sometimes power isn't about badges or threats. Sometimes it's just knowing when to say no. If you enjoyed watching Karen's HOA empire fall apart one floaty at a time, make sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done if you were the chief. And don't forget to subscribe for more wild suburban showdowns, entitled drama and sweet justice, one petty feud at a time.